Hello, everyone, and welcome to our channel. I'm Mark.
And I'm Rob.
Today, we're talking about the fact that the underrated Caitlin Clark actually started in her freshman year in college. So, hey, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. Hit the notification bell when you do, so you get notified of our next video. So, Rob, there's been some stuff on X, which I don't really follow, that people are now going back and saying, Caitlin Clark got ripped off when she was a freshman. She should have been player of the year as a freshman as opposed to Paige, which I don't agree with. But she did get ripped off her freshman year for other reasons in other categories. And I'm going to go over that. So if you don't know, Caitlin Clark was the number 4 recruit coming out of, and she went to Iowa. And the number 1 recruit was Paige Beckers, and she went to UConn. So Gino didn't recruit Caitlin because he didn't need a second point guard, who were both freshmen. Right. So Caitlin did want to go to UConn, but he never contacted her. And she was going to go to Notre Dame, and then she ended up going to Iowa, and then the rest is history. And I didn't know who she was because I don't follow college basketball that closely until I was just watching something in women's basketball. I was watching ESPN or something, and I believe it was Carolyn Peck. She came out and said the most exciting freshman in women's college basketball is Caitlin Clark with her logo threes and her three-point shooting. I can't remember if she mentioned her passing or not, but she said she's the most excited. I said, okay, logo threes. I thought only Steph Curry did that. I didn't know women were doing that. So I started watching her freshman year. I didn't watch every game. I started watching her. And then I heard about Paige Beckers because she went to UConn. Obviously, she's a great player. And I only saw Paige Beckers play a couple times that year. So I can't say from visual eye view who I definitely thought was better, but I think Paige had slightly better numbers, in my opinion. Now, I know Caitlin Clark fans disagree with that, but I would argue that Paige Beckers did deserve Player of the Year. However, the difference between the two was very slight, I thought. And
Mark, I heard about Paige Beckers first before I even heard about Caitlin Clark. When I was watching, because like I said, I like to watch women's college basketball because I just love basketball. But yeah, I do remember. I do remember about Paige mostly.
Right. So what happened was they were both voted co-freshman of the year. And now, if you don't know, there's actually 4 different awards for Player of the Year. The Wade one has other categories, so I'm going to leave that aside for right now. But there's the Wooden Award, there's the AP Player of the Year, and there's the U.S. Basketball Writers Association Player of the Year Award. And they also have an All-American team, which we'll get to. And Paige won all 3 of those. And when Caitlin was a junior and a senior, she won all 3 of those too, in addition to the Wade ones. But there was a finalist list for the Wooden Award. The other ones didn't have a finalist. They just had a winner. And shockingly, Rob, she did not make the top 15 among the finalists for the Wooden Award. And people, I was surprised because I was following her. Other than Paige, I thought she was the best freshman, at least. And certainly she should have been, I don't know, I thought she should have been in the top 5 from what I understood. She led the country in scoring and was second in assists. So the Wooden Award came out with the top 15 in consideration, which is meaningless because only one person's going to win it. It's kind of strange they came up with a list of 15 people and she wasn't on it. And it's even stranger because the U.S. Basketball Writers Association made her first team All-American, which would place her in the top 5. And she was second team AP All-American, which was a joke. She should have been first team. And there were some interesting comments that people made that. And here's some comments. He said, Mike Greener said, "Did you pay off your committee to exclude Caitlin Clark from Iowa being on this list of players? Something's wrong here. John Wooden would be rolling around in his grave if he knew this." And someone else said, "This is no joke. No, Caitlin Clark, she leads the nation in points, second in assists, and is incredibly efficient. This award is a joke." So there was all sorts of comments about this when it was announced. So it wasn't like Caitlin, wasn't like there wasn't some controversy at the time. People were flabbergasted that she wasn't in the top 15. Now,
I mean, these other 3, she's top 5 or second in other places, but John Wooden, she's not even a mention, honorable mention. It's like,
it was unbelievable, Rob, at the time. There was controversy about that, but it wasn't women's basketball didn't get much publicity. So it wasn't that big a deal at the time, publicity wise. Like right now, if that happened to Caitlin Clark and Caitlin Clark had the same amount of publicity that she gets now, this would be nonstop for a month. Okay,
Right.
there'd be 100 million videos about it. But
Right.
at the time, it wasn't that big a deal. There wasn't as many YouTube channels. And again, there wasn't as much publicity about women's basketball. It really didn't happen until the end of Caitlin Clark's junior year when she went on that run. That's when women's basketball really started getting publicity. So this is 2 years away from that. Now, there's All-American teams, and AP one, I guess, is the most prestigious. For some reason, Rob, she only made second team AP that year. There was Paige Beckers, obviously, Aaliyah Boston, who won Player of the Year the next year.
Okay.
There was Ryan Howard,
That's
Alyssa
cool.
Smith,
Okay.
and Dana Evans,
Huh?
who's a senior at Louisville. Now, okay, so Aaliyah Boston and Ryan Howard, I think you can make the best argument for them to be on the team. Alyssa Smith, no. But Dana Evans, the guard. So what I did is I went and compared the stats. She was a senior at Louisville, and they were a 2 seed. So they were like a top 8 team in the country. I was only a 5 seed, but this is Player of the Year award and All-American. They don't go by that. It's not an MVP award. So that shouldn't make any difference. But someone made that argument. Oh, maybe because she was a senior at a top school. Who knows? Dana Evans was not as good as Caitlin Clark that year if you look at the stats. I mean, this isn't even close. And how she got voted ahead of Caitlin Clark, and she was obviously in the top 15 for the Wooden Award too, Dana Evans. But this is first team for All-American, and she made it over Caitlin Clark. And let me show you the stats. It's kind of a joke that she made it over Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, I'm going to do points first, and I'm going to mention Caitlin Clark first and then Dana Evans second. 26.6 to 20.1. Rebounds, Caitlin Clark, 5.9 to 2.7. Assists, 7.1 to 3.9. Turnovers, Caitlin Clark had more, 4.8 to 2.1. So Dana Evans was better at turnovers, and her assist to turnover ratio was better too. She was 1.86 to Caitlin Clark's 1.48. Steals were identical at 1.3. Caitlin Clark had 0.5 blocks, and Dana Evans only had 0.1 blocks. Shooting percentage, Caitlin Clark was 472 to 430 for Dana Evans. 3-point shooting was way better at 0.406 to 353. And her free throw shooting was slightly lower. Caitlin Clark was 8.58 and Dana Evans was 8.73. So if you look at that, she was better in almost every category, but assist to turnover and turnovers in general. A little bit better in free throw percentage by Dana Evans. But her shooting percentage by Caitlin Clark in both the two major categories, and her scoring and rebounding was way higher. Her assists were way higher. Her scoring was way higher. I mean, her blocks were 5 times as much because of 0.5 to 0.1. Her steals were identical. There's no way you can convince me that Dana Evans was a better player that year than Caitlin Clark. And she didn't make first team All-Pro, and Dana Evans did. Whether she should have won the award for Player of the Year, I'll get to right now because I'm going to compare the stats between Paige and Caitlin Clark. But certainly she was ripped off on the AP All-American team. Now, like I said, U.S. Writers Association actually put Caitlin Clark on the first team because they had their brains, together. Right. So she did make the first team All-American in the U.S. Writers Association. And that was kind of weird because they had 6 players make that for some reason on first team. And they were Aaliyah Boston, Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark, Dana Evans, Naz Hillman, and Ryan Howard. Notice Smith did not make first team according to the U.S. Basketball Writers Association, even though she made it for the AP team. So completely different list. Anyways, just point that out. So it wasn't like I don't know what's wrong with AP. They're just crazy. But let's go to compare for Player of the Year awards for people with Caitlin Clark fans who feel she should have got it. I do not agree with them. I think she was the second best, at least the second best player, maybe tied for second best player, or certainly in the top 4 or 5 that year. Not top 15 is just ridiculous, Rob. I couldn't believe it at the time because I was watching her thinking she was like the second best freshman or second best player in the country. Now, I didn't watch a lot of women college basketball, so I was just going by the fact that I was biased towards her. But anyways, here's Paige and Caitlin Clark. Their freshman year. This is in 2021. I'll do scoring, and I'll do Caitlin Clark first. 26.6 to 20.0. Rebounds 5.9. Paige was 4.9. Assists, Caitlin Clark 7.1 to Paige 5.8. Turnovers, Clark was 4.8 and Paige was only 2.5. So Paige turnover to assist ratio was excellent. It was 2.32. Caitlin Clark's was only 1.48. Steals, Paige was 2.3 to Caitlin Clark 1.3. Blocks, Caitlin Clark had a slight advantage at 0.5 over 0.4. But shooting percentage was Paige at 524, impressive. Caitlin Clark was 472. And three-point shooting, Paige was 464, and Caitlin Clark was only 406. And Paige actually shot better at the free throw line, 869 to 858.
Yeah, when I saw her, I was like, she's going to be something. She's going to be really
Paige
something. Yeah, when I saw Paige play, I was like, wow.
Caitlin Clark scored a little bit more and had a little bit more rebounds and a little bit more assists. So you can make the argument, for player of the year for her if you want. But I think Paige was more efficient and was a better player that year by a little bit. I don't think it was enough to the fact that she was player of the year and Caitlin Clark didn't make the top 15, but I thought she was slightly better because of the turnovers and the efficiency of her shooting and that kind of stuff.
So they got that right.
I'm sorry?
So they got that right.
I think so. She was a better defender, Rob. Caitlin Clark, wasn't a good defender from the get-go, at least on ball defense.
She's still working on it.
I think her off-ball defense and her defensive rebounding is strong. But I don't think she got ripped off for player of the year, but she certainly got ripped off for not being the top 15 in the Wooden Award and not making first team All-American with the AP, which was ridiculous.
Yeah,
she was certainly the top 3 or 4 players in the country.
Oh, yeah. That definitely was a...
Because Ryan Howard was a strong player, if I understand. Leah Boston went on to win player of the year the next year. And I will discuss Caitlin Clark's sophomore year also. Now, Caitlin Clark made first team All-American with the AP the next year and the U.S. Basketball Writers Association, but her numbers actually went down, Rob. She did not, I'm not saying she didn't play as well her sophomore year, because I think she was a better passer, but her numbers shooting percentage went down. But I think it's because she got some publicity at the end of the year when she went up against Paige Beckers in the Sweet 16, and people found out who she was because the game was really, pumped up. So I think the next year, because Caitlin Clark had all those points and assists from the year before, she got more double teams and everything the following year, and people really concentrated on her. And I think she forced some shots her sophomore year, even though she made first team All-American that year and only second team All-American the year before. So the next year after that, her junior and senior, Caitlin Clark's numbers all went up. Caitlin Clark's sophomore, junior, and senior year, she led the country in both assists and scoring, Rob. But her shooting percentage went down. Like, for instance, I'll tell you. So to give you an example, Rob, and how her numbers went down her sophomore year, her shooting percentage went from 472 to 452, and her three-point shooting went from 406 down to 332. So there was a big drop in her three-point shooting her sophomore year. And then it went up to 389 and 378. Her three-point shooting was best her freshman year. However, her assists went up. So her assists went up, and she led the country that instead of second, she was first in the country as a sophomore, junior, and a senior, 8.0, 8.6, 8.9. Her turnovers were pretty much the same, except for junior went down to 4.2. So anyways, that's Caitlin Clark. She got ripped off her freshman year, and that's when the underrated start. And I don't know why, Rob. Does the UConn Mafia have that much control over the media?
No, I don't think it's a control thing. I just think that's some people that when they're trying to do the eye test, they're either biased or they're focused in on just the top teams, like we talked about, Connecticut, South Carolina. So when someone from the outside, I mean, they're not like that. Right now, it's different. But back then, it seemed like they were more worried about.
Caitlin Clark and Iowa got publicity that year, though, Rob. So it wasn't like the people didn't know Caitlin Clark was.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about the writers. Even though it's not a publicity thing. It's just like they're kind of just stuck in their old ways. Like we focus on these three teams, and this is outside team Iowa. Yeah, that's nice. That's really cool. But these teams, what about these teams? We got Connecticut, we got South Carolina, we got LSU. Those are more important. And so, But it's
Yeah,
not like that. I don't think it's not like that now, which is kind of good. I like it.
yeah. I mean, I think in the old days when there wasn't as much coverage, the juniors and seniors had a big advantage for these All-American teams. But nowadays, people know who the freshmen are right away. So I
Right.
think they're at less of an advantage. So that doesn't explain to me Dana Evans Sr. over Caitlin Clark freshman, snub with the AP because
I
that
don't know.
so
I don't know.
and there's no explanation for the not being in the top 15 for the Wooden Award.
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted at the time. And like I said, I think it would have been a big, huge deal if it happened now where there's so much more coverage than there is in
Right.
women's basketball.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
but I don't know what's wrong with the Wooden people, but it is embarrassing looking back at that they did that. And they
That's
got
pretty sad.
criticized at the time, but it's going to get, in hindsight, it's going to look worse even more as we see Caitlin Clark, demonstrate that she's as good as advertised. And I just wanted to make this video because she got underrated when she graduated from college, saying she was only going to be average and, all
Right.
that kind of stuff
Flash
from
in the pan.
WNBA. She was one of the
Flash
top.
in the pan. I'm like, what? Flash in the pan.
And it turns out she was one of the top 3 rookies of all time. And she was first team all pro as a rookie, which is rare.
And it seemed like Mark, even though that happened, they kind of just stuck with that, even though she was putting on a display that, most people the first year playing any kind of sport could never do. They still were just like underrating her. Well, yeah, she leads assist. Oh,
right.
Yeah, yeah.
The thing is, I'm wondering about, Rob, is there was definitely race involved in the underrating of Caitlin Clark from her senior year in college to transitioning in the WNBA. I'm not sure that's the case when she was a freshman in college because Paige Beckers is white and she got Player of the Year as a freshman, which has never happened ever before.
Right.
So I'm not sure that was it. That when she was a freshman, she got underrated because she was white. But it was in terms of her transition. And the reason, Rob, that race became a factor is because she got so much publicity the last 13 months of her college career. And that's why she ended up getting underrated because people were upset that this white woman got so much publicity, like way, way over the top publicity, as opposed to her freshman year, just some publicity. And that's how she ended up getting underrated when she was a senior in college, as opposed to when she was a freshman.
Yeah. Yeah, like, who's this big hype? Oh, the big hype. Oh, are you kidding me? Like I said, even though that's from people who are watching or just the average person, the writers, but to have the whole league underrate her,
right,
and not promote that's mind-boggling to me how they didn't pick up on that.
Right, and I understand that Paige Becker played on a better team, so she could be more conservative and didn't have to carry a team like Caitlin Clark did. But Caitlin Clark, likes to take chances, and that's going to come in the turnovers. But to say necessarily she was a better scorer just because she scored more points and had more assists, not necessarily. Paige Becker's shot better, had better assist turnover ratio, and also was a better defender than Caitlin Clark. So that's 3 major categories there, Rob. Right. So that didn't happen necessarily later on when Caitlin Clark. We'll see what happens. But I'm just saying you can make the argument that Paige Beckers, and I think it was probably the right call there for Player of the Year. But
definitely, yeah.
But with Caitlin Clark not being in the top 3 or 4 players or 5 players, that's just silly.
That's cool.
Anyways, that's my feel. I know Caitlin Clark fans think she should have been Player of the Year her freshman year, and they think that the UConn Mafia kept her out of winning Player of the Year but it makes no sense that she's co-freshman of the year with the person that won Player of the Year. It doesn't make first team all American and doesn't make the top 50 in the award. That makes no sense. Right. It was a co-freshman year. They didn't have to do a co-freshman of the year award. Okay. Right. It shows you that there wasn't a great amount of difference between the two, or there wouldn't have been 2 co-freshmen of the year. So anyways, that's my take, and I'm sticking to it. But if you think she should have been Player of the Year as freshman year, I don't agree with you, but I understand the argument because she led the country in scoring and in assists, and she had more rebounds than Paige.
But they did underrate her as far as other things. They did it. That was an underrating of her.
All right. I don't think that was the big deal. The big deal was the other 2 categories I talked about.
Right.
So anyways, but she's still underrated now, although I think she got 4th in the MVP voting. I thought that was fair. And I think it'll be different next year with a new coach. And I think you see all her numbers go up next year. And I don't think that's a pretty insightful thing to say.
I guarantee it.
All right, let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you like this video, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do so. Hit the notification bell when you do, so you get notified of our next videos. And join us for our live show. We'll discuss this on the live show next Monday. Rob and I will both be there, and it's 6 to 8 Eastern time every Monday except for major holidays. So you want to donate to this channel, you can with super chats and super thanks down below. And there's a link to PayPal. And we'll see you in the next video.
Peace out.